In order to vent her anger, beautiful women doodle on the photos of their competitors. Strange things have happened. In the end, she also dramatized herself to death. What is it all about? Let's take a look. The first story is called Graffiti. Angela is a cartoonist. One day, while waiting for an interview, she met Sonia, a woman who is also a cartoonist. She offered to look over Angela's picture book and give her some advice. After looking through it for a while, Sonia suggested that one of them was a bit mediocre. Angela tore up the painting in frustration. In the interview office, she ran into an acquaintance, Calvin. Calvin told him, "Now there's only one picture that pleases the editor." Angela showed the work to the editor-in-chief. He was clearly not impressed and pulled out a sketch saying that Sonia had just drawn it, and that was exactly what he needed. Angela looked very angry. Sonia plagiarized her own ideas. She had no choice, but there was nothing she could do. When Angela got home, she flipped through Sonia's interview and began to draw on it like she was venting her anger. The second day, she got a message from Calvin saying Sonia was dead, so the producers are looking for a new illustrator. She searched news reports. Reports stated that Sonia died after an unfortunate fall on the road. Sonia's eyes were eaten by rats, and she died the same way Angela's doodles did. And so Angela got another interview. She submitted her new work to the editor and finally got the nod. The editor-in-chief asked her to fire Calvin on her behalf before signing the contract. Angela's gonna read this termination letter in front of him. This is also Angela's certificate of application for joining the company. Angela refused him resolutely, so the producer tore up the contract in front of Angela. Angela went to the bar at the bottom of the building and ordered a drink and doodled on a magazine. It wasn't long before the editor-in-chief jumped off the building. Angela was horrified by the magic of the graffiti. When she got home, she began to pack up her things. A few days later, she came to the magazine to say goodbye to Calvin. Calvin told her the editor-in-chief jumped to his death. He's the new editor-in-chief now. He appreciates Angela's talent and wants to hire her here. Angela was so happy that she invited Calvin to dinner. After she left, the bartender came over. The bartender gives Calvin the magazine Angela left on the bar. Calvin flipped through it and was very surprised. Angela's at home drinking to celebrate. Calvin came over unexpectedly and confronted her about the graffiti. Angela barricaded herself in her room in panic and guilt. Calvin threatened to call the police if she didn't speak up. Angela lost control of her emotions. She found a picture of Calvin in a magazine and started doodling. Soon the wine bottle placed next to her disappeared. There was the sound of breaking glass outside. Blood flowed from under the door. She opened the door and looked. Calvin died like this. The dramatic thing is that Angela painted too hard and the ink penetrated into herself. She looked down and saw that half the bottle was stuck in her neck. And that's the end of the first story. The second story is called The Thing in the Hole. Allison receives a letter from her father, Yago, asking her to join her fiancé, Wenli, for dinner at the manor. Father and daughter haven't seen each other in 15 years. Allison hated her father. When her mother died, Yago sent himself off to boarding school and never asked about it, even though Allison doesn't want to see him. But she was persuaded by her fiancé to come to the manor where her father lived. Yago told Allison at the luncheon he was sorry for his past indifference, so he had to make amends. He's going to pay for Allison's wedding. Allison didn't want to accept it, but her father said they could never afford a wedding on their income. Allison was so angry she just left. Her fiancé just wanted to leave together. Argo led him straight into a secret vault. There was a deep hole in the vault. Yago told him, locked down below is a creature that existed on Earth long ago called Mihotsao. The great earthquake in 1926 was caused by it, all because someone forgot to feed him. That's why it woke up. Yago has been the Mihotsao's handler since he was 16. In order to keep Mihokeo in a dormant state for a long time, he must feed him with a living person every 15 years. And now he's dying, and he has to pass that responsibility on to the next generation. Though Wenli couldn't accept it, but his father-in-law enticed himself with a rich inheritance. Wenli agreed. The day of the wedding was the day they were to feed Mihotsao. Wenli's got a lot on his mind, because today he's gonna pick out a loser. He looked up and down among the guests, trying to pick out a suitable candidate. Then Yago gave him a packet of poison. Wenli picked the spiked wine his hated cousin handed him. Then Wenli lured him into the vault while he was unconscious. Wenli didn't even have to do it himself. His cousin fell. Yago saw all this with great satisfaction. He and Winley celebrated with a drink. What I didn't know was that he was drugged too. When he woke up, he found himself tied up. Winley told him, "This is the remains of his great-grandparents' estate." It turns out that Winley's family had also been guardians of Mihotsao. They forgot to feed, and it took an earthquake to ruin everything. Then Allison came up from behind. She already knew all this. Allison still can't forgive her father, because he found himself back just to feed that monster. Yago also wants his daughter's sympathy, but he couldn't even name his daughter's father's surname. In this way, Yago was carried into the pit by the big stone. When the two of them returned home, they found that their cousin suddenly emerged from the front door. He actually crawled out of the hole. It was past 12 o'clock, which means Mihotsao's not being fed. The monster came straight out of the ground and headed for two people. End of story. These two ghost stories are the 5th episode of The Ghost Show. The Ghost Show series has always been loved by the audience. Each story makes people curious to look down. The story is short and rich in elements. The overall quality of the story is very high. The female cartoonists are like the main characters in the Death Note, except she tends to kill anyone who gets in her way. Overall, Xiaobian was not disappointed. Alright, that's all for today's ghost story. If you like it, please like the comments and follow. See you next time.